So before I begin, I just wanted to let y'all know that I've taken a slightly different tack with my presentation than with some of the other ones. So I'm not going to discuss so much something that we've done at the Texan over the past year, but rather something that we started to think about and have serious conversations about. And I also just want to hear what y'all think about this issue, because I know it's one that you all deal with on a daily basis. It's my least favorite part of my job, dealing with comments specifically and monitoring them. And yeah, as I said, I'm sure you'll all have plenty of thoughts about it. But first,
guest access.
okay. Cool. First, just by a quick show of hands, how many of you have comments on your website? Yeah, so pretty much all of you. And do any of you like them? Okay, so then the next question is, why do you have them? Why do you keep them around? What good do they bring to your website?
I know that people are reading the articles if they comment on them.
Yeah.
I think there's some level of accountability that, like, if you open it up to other people, if you're like lying about something or like if you didn't do good reporting, they can like comment on it and then everyone else can see it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It occasionally leads to new stories when people say something that we didn't know.
Yeah, definitely. So those are all good reasons for keeping comments around. I mean, I think for us at the Texan, one of the reasons that we keep them around is just that, you know, as you said, they keep us accountable, they give us, you know, new story ideas, but also we just sort of feel like one of the old tenets of journalism is you're supposed to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted, right? And so I guess one of the ideas is that by allowing comments, you're essentially democratizing the whole news media operation that we run at the Texan. You're allowing more people to become part of the news production process. And we see that as just a generally good thing, because it means that the people in power, you know, maybe have a little bit less power, and those who don't normally have a voice in the media operation now are empowered. But there are some problems with that, as you know. And I'll show you a good example of that right here with this editorial. And so first, before I actually scroll down to the comments, I just want to point out a few things about this editorial. First, if you read the headline, you'll see we point out both the successes and failures of these two. These are the administration. These are the president and vice president who just left office a few weeks ago. And then the other thing is, look who it's signed by. It's signed by the Daily Texan editorial board. So you'll see why that's relevant in just a minute when I scroll down to the comments. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to get to the best ones. So yeah, as you can see, what happens is first, you know, a few specific people in student government are called out. Just so you know, Xavier and Rohit are the new president and vice president. They're sort of actually kind of well known right now for being the joke team that ran this past year, actually, you know, just a few weeks ago, and they won against these SG powerhouses who were expected to win by a landslide. And then these joke candidates from the Travesty, which is our humor publication on campus, ended up winning by 20 points. So just to give you a little background there. So yeah, you see people being called out personally. Taral Patel's in student government. Let's see, Riley Brands is full of shit. That's me. Let's see. They're also apparently better candidates than your butt boy Braden Jones was. Braden isn't gay. Dummy, Braden isn't gay. Are you sure he isn't gay? Yes, I'm not gay from Braden himself, apparently. So yeah, you're all laughing, and I laughed too when I read these initially, because they are funny, but there's a problem. I mean, even if you aren't personally offended by it, which I'm not, but I know certain people on my staff are, even if you set that issue aside, it just makes the website look trashy, doesn't it? I mean, you're trying to elevate the conversation, as the St. Louis Post-Dispatch editorial page editor Tony Messenger said. And I bring him up specifically because a few months ago, back in late December, he actually banned all comments from the editorial section of that newspaper's website. And I actually asked him, so, you know, it's been like, what, 4 months since you banned the comments from your website, and, you know, have you seen any real positive changes? Do you think you're going to keep the comments off the editorial section? Do you think you'll bring them back eventually? And he said, well, you know, I can't say I've seen any clear positive benefits from deleting the comments, but we've taken away a lot of crap that used to be on our website, and he considered that what he called addition by subtraction. So at this point, he has every intention of just continuing that experiment, because when he first made the decision to ban comments, he said it was just going to be a 2-month-long experiment and they would revisit after that. And now it's been several more months than that, and as he said, he's just not interested in bringing them back because it really does just lead to this kind of, as I said, trashy appearance on your website. And another problem that you'll see is we have some ways of figuring out who these people are. So sometimes we'll like check out the IP addresses of these commenters. I actually haven't done it in this particular case, but we do have certain regular commenters who like to assume several identities. And so I'm pretty sure in this case that there are about 3 or 4 people who are commenting, and they're just assuming different identities. And another problem is you see, I might have scrolled past it, no, here it is, Jessica S. So Jessica S. is a person who was in student government until just a few weeks ago. And we know for a fact that she didn't write this comment. So someone's clearly impersonating her, someone's clearly impersonating other people in student government. Now here's another funny one. Rating company includes Riley Brands. Riley's been covering, of course, bullshit for him all year. He's one of the founders of the company. Yeah, so it just makes the whole website look trashy. And so, like, the question you have to ask is like, well, what do you do about this? As you can see, we have anonymous comments on our website. I don't know what you have. I know there are several different ways to get around the issue of anonymous comments because people, when they can comment anonymously, know that they can say whatever they want and there are no real repercussions. And I mean, I went to the breakout session earlier where we talked about branding, and one of the benefits that brings is, well, people who might be afraid to speak the truth now feel emboldened to actually say what needs to be said. It, allows people to be whistleblowers if they want. But then it also has all these negative effects. So one of the things we really discussed this year at the Texan is, well, what can we do about this? We obviously value the comments that our readers bring, but it's kind of reached a breaking point for us because really in the past week or so, it's really just flared up like this. And occasionally it happens with student government articles, also with anything having to do with Greek life. I'm sure you've seen that effect too. And it's kind of just reached a point where we're all just kind of tired of it. And so we've just been thinking about ways, as I said, to keep the comments, but to establish a level of accountability almost. So we're thinking about ways of doing that, like, instituting like Facebook commenting. So it's attached to someone's Facebook account. So in theory, we should know who it is because they have their name attached to it. Of course, I was talking to someone earlier, I can't remember who, but you can circumvent that, of course, by just creating fake Facebook accounts if you're really so inclined and feel like you need to say something like rating company include Riley Brands, who has been covering up, of course, bullshit for him all year. He's one of the founders of the company. And I should say this isn't an issue that we're just tackling for the very first time this year. I mean, this is something that I know the Texan has been dealing with for the past few years. I talked to our digital director from a few years ago, and she said that even then there were times when all the editors would sit down together and try to figure out, well, what do we do about comments? Can we just ban them all together? And they came really close to doing that at a couple of points, but because they considered that such a major decision, they weren't going to do that unless they had the unanimous consent of all the top editors, and we've just never been able to get that unanimous consent. And so that's why we still have them as we have them now, which is anonymous and basically uncontrolled in a way. We do have, I should say, a team of web editors who moderate the comments, and we do have a clear list of rules for the comments. So we say, basically, if you want to comment, essentially just be respectful, be civil, don't attack people personally. As you can see, has been left up here in part because I wanted to show this to you and not just show you a screenshot. But another problem with that is, well, each of you are going to have a different team of web editors, right? They might have different interpretations of what's not civil, what is inappropriate, what's a personal attack. As I said, I think maybe I skew a little bit more towards this side of being a little lenient because whatever, I just laugh it off. But I know that some people, some staff writers may not feel the same way, and so you have to be sensitive to their feelings, and then you also just have to think about some sort of standard. You have to come up with something more specific than just be civil, be polite, don't personally attack people. And I think that's what we're going to do in the next few weeks, maybe over the next few months, maybe even with the next editor who's going to take office in early June. She's going to have to think about well, how do I make that more specific? Because if we really want to be seen as fair in our moderating of comments, then we're going to have to come up with something more than like the 2 or 3 bullet points that we have right now. And so, yeah, I guess that's basically it. I'm actually really curious what systems y'all have implemented in order to get around this issue of these just sort of interminable threads of mudslinging. Does anyone have anything besides just Facebook commenting? Any unique innovations?
We don't. We use the same platform. But what I was thinking as you're talking is that, it strikes me that if we didn't have comments on our website, and it's not like we get a lot of comments right now, but if we didn't, then even more of those conversations would be happening outside of our platform. Like, if we didn't have comments on our website, then people would just discuss them more on Facebook or more on Twitter. And so we would lose, some engagement on our own platform.
I think that's something a good point. I actually asked Tony Messenger, as I mentioned before, he's the editorial page editor of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and he said, well, I don't feel we've really lost that engagement with our readers because we still have a very vibrant letters section. We communicate with our readers via email. We even have online chats with them now. So he feels like he's made up for it in a number of ways. But yeah, I think we should probably move the discussion to social media, actually. I think Twitter is the place it should be happening, Facebook too, any number of new platforms, just because I think, to answer the question and the title of my talk, is it, necessary evil or a needless nuisance? I think it's a little more of a needless nuisance as it exists now. But I think with a number of important tweaks, primarily moving it to, moving it to a venue where people are clearly identified is essentially the major change that needs to be made. And then it will become neither of those, and it'll just be a positive benefit for the paper, for the readers. And I think it'll really just add to the conversation. Does anyone else have any thoughts, any ideas?
I was gonna comment on what you just said about the idea of naming people. Something I've been thinking about, just kind of since earlier today. We were in the breakout section, and you talked about this earlier. But this idea of nowhere else would someone be allowed to publicly make these mudslinging really libelous, right? Comments in many situations without identity, without being identified. That literally doesn't happen anywhere else, and that never happened before the internet. So why are we giving people the ability to write often blatant lies, very problematic things without any name attached, right? Why is that? Why don't we keep commenters accountable? And there's a real argument for why that might be necessary, because again, we would never print someone if someone saying something libelous, we would never print in the paper. We could be sued for that. It's true that under American libel law, we can't get sued for comments, but which is good on our side, but at the same time, why it's just we can't get sued for it? Should we really let people do it? I don't know. I think it's very important.
No, I think that's a really good point, because I don't know what the policy is at every other paper here, but we won't print anonymous letters. They always have to have a name attached to them. That's just one of our editorial policies. But yeah, so you're exactly right. We would never print anything like this from, the material problem, for instance. We would say, you have to attach your name to it. If you don't want to do it, well, then tough luck, we're not printing it in the paper. So yeah, that's definitely a good point.
Do you have any if I wanted to comment on that story, do I have to give my email address?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that actually. So you do have to put in your email address, but I don't think the system actually verifies it in any way, so you can just put in some completely made up throwaway account and it won't be the wiser.
Yeah, I think that's what we had.
Yeah.